Good day. I received a rather distressing communique from a friend of mine. Now, he lives in a nice working class neighborhood here in Toronto. Ethnic background, I think first generation Canadian born. Toronto City Council, in their infinite wisdom, decided to put in a safe injection site to service the needs of the addicts. So, consequences. Property values have dropped. You have a community now under siege, patrolling your backyard in the morning to pick up used condoms and syringes. Safe injection site. Safe for whom? The addicts, but not for the neighborhood. Hookers, drug addicts, robberies, assaults. I won't belabor this, just as an aside. I never studied sociology. In almost essentially another life, I was a street kid for a brief time. Slept in abandoned buildings, found out where to go, dumpster diving, what restaurants threw out what donut shops threw out what, the days, the times. I won't get into that. However, as a consequence, I came into contact with a lot of other street people, with addicts, with mentally disenfranchised, with street people, with the seamy underbelly of a city. The thing that the average middle class and even working class rarely encounters, unless Toronto City Council in infinite wisdom decides to move it into your neighborhood. Then it becomes real. So an old lady's hit in the head with a brick, and she wasn't even robbed. Now, why was it done? You've got someone in an altered state. What was their motivation? Who knows? The voices told them to. Who the hell knows? Whatever. So now, like I said, a community under siege. People are worried about house break-ins. People worry about vehicle break-ins. And of course, now any working person knows you need your sleep. Anybody who works hard for a living knows that you need your sleep. So you've got fights between dealers and addicts. You've got fights between addicts and addicts. You've got screaming hookers. You've got screaming attitude going on outside your window. What can you do? Call the cops? Their hands are tied. I'll get into police responses later. So you're watching your neighborhood go down the toilet. You're worried about your children. You're worried about your mother. Who do addicts target? Addicts, anybody who knows addicts, there is only one imperative: to get high. The mechanisms, the vehicles they use to do this are immaterial. Robbery is the most common. Assault, not a problem. So who will they target? They're not going to target anybody who looks like they're capable of taking care of themselves, like a working man. Soft targets. Soft targets are children, handicapped people, the elderly. Addict sees an old lady who went to the ATM, withdrew cash, follows her home, purse snatches her. She hangs on to the purse, so he punches her in the face, grabs her purse and runs. Throws out everything except the cash and maybe credit cards that he can sell. Looks for what he can sell. Your son, your daughter's coming home from school. Addict sees the backpack. Ooh, they've got an iPad or a notebook. They've got a cell phone. They've got an iPod. Something I can steal and sell. Children are easy targets. Women. Your wife goes to the store to buy groceries. Doesn't even make it to the store. Some addict slugged her and grabbed her purse because it's a woman. You're handicapped, you're an automatic target. They don't care. There is no morality in an addict. There is no fear of consequence in an addict. There is one overriding need. I want to get high. And so the dealers gravitate towards that area with all the problems that dealers bring, which is gunfire, which is violence, to what was a nice, peaceful, quiet, working class neighborhood. Like I said, people living under siege. Toronto City Council is a joke. If Rob Ford had survived and had have taken the election, I think we would see a very different Toronto. But unfortunately, he was taken before his time. Our Mayor Tory is a spineless jellyfish and a weasel. And Toronto City Council is overloaded, top-heavy with NDP and lib-left morons. I've gone on about this in past posts. These theorists, these liberal left do-gooders and social re-engineers never, ever live with the consequences of their decisions. They're not confronted with the consequences. Oh, they might look, do a walkthrough, let's say, if an area residents finally complained enough, so they go take a look and go, oh, that's awful, and leave. And what do they go? Maybe we should form a committee to study this. Anybody who knows government committees at almost every level is a mechanism to feed public money to their friends and acquaintances. I mean, that's just a fact. Bobby Ray did this, Booby Ray, I call him, when his last days as the Premier of Ontario organized, I forget how many different committees to study bullshit. And he did it so he could get his friends and supporters to suck at the public trough, what, $500 a day, shit like this, to suck at the public trough before he was ousted from office. When Harris got in, one of the first things he did, my friend who worked in the government said he dissolved, I believe it was 27 committees that had one purpose, and that was to suck money out of the public coffers and get their nose into the public trough. But of course not. No, they were doing this for the best of reasons. So you've got these theorists and academicians opining and postulating and saying, oh, let's put a safe injection site here because we must look after these poor street people. Well, what about the residents? We have to look after these street people. We have to do something about these people. Yes, but what are you going to do to the neighborhood? We'll look into that. You notice that none of these safe injection sites are anywhere near the home of the city councillor or their relatives or friends. No, you see, no, we're going to put it, this is the mindset, right? We're going to put it in a working class neighborhood because these lower class people understand better other lower class people, and they'd be able to, it'd be less of an impact on their neighborhood because, I mean, look where they live, right? Now, of course, they would never admit that, but that's exactly the mindset. You know, you're just part of what Walter Lippmann referred to as the bewildered herd. So as I said, you've got a consequence, a neighborhood that's gone downhill. What to do? Police are hamstrung. The courts have become so stupid now that an addict or assaulter, robber, would probably be on the street before the police had even finished doing the arrest report. There's no deterrence. There's no consequence to them. They're not afraid of the law. The law is hardly ever there. And if they are caught, unless they commit a murder, and then they're going to get a slap on the wrist because they were not criminally responsible, NCR, you know, because they were in an altered state because of their drugs, and therefore, you know, they should not be held accountable. Now, as to the victims of this, the people whose lives are shattered by these events, well, gee, that's too bad. We have to look after the rights of these people. It's been bitched about for years. The rights of the Canadian citizens have deteriorated so badly under the liberal left. You're not even allowed to defend yourself. Now, let me postulate a scenario that I see as perfectly plausible. Some 13, 14-year-old girl's coming home from school, backpack over her shoulder, knapsack over her shoulder. Some druggie zeroes in on her, knocks her flying, grabs her backpack and looks over this cute little young thing and decides maybe he's going to cop a feel or more. Now, Dad is furious, and Dad's had enough. Maybe this is just the straw that breaks the camel's back. So Dad goes out looking for this guy with a baseball bat and tunes him up. Seriously. He'd be arrested. And even if he was eventually acquitted, you betcha the courts would make him freaking pay. Like the gentleman who defended his home from being firebombed. I've mentioned this before. Fired shots into the air. Legal firearm owner fired shots into the air. Cost him $60,000. He was cleared of all charges, but it cost him $60,000. There's a deterrent. Defend yourself. Even if you're in the right, you're going to pay for it. We see that going on out west now. The disconnect of our politicians at all levels, municipally, provincially, federally, the disconnect with real Canadians is huge. That gulf between reality and their theories that chasm is enormous. And again, they never face consequences for this. It never impacts them personally. The only one I've seen doing any writing about this is Sue Ann Levy, God bless her, from the Toronto Sun. And she's done articles about what is happening to neighborhoods with these so-called safe injection sites. Now, let me digress for a second. Years ago, I worked with this Eastern European dickhead. And he used to love running down Canada. He was just basically an extremely unhappy man, but he loved running down Canada because he knew it would get me torqued up. Well, I learned eventually how to get him torqued up and then shut him up. But he did teach me one valuable lesson. Anybody who wishes to knock down or critique an institution, a process, anything, all you need is a big mouth and an opinion. If you're a reasoned and intelligent person, nature abhors a vacuum. If something exists, there was a reason for its existence. If it's not working, propose a viable solution. If you're going to tear something down, be prepared to put something up in its place. So let me give you my ideas of what would have been an intelligent approach. You wish to look after the addicts, give them a safe site for injections. I would love to see a politician have the spine to enact legislation under the blanket, which would be a slippery slope in a way of for the public good. Okay? Street sweeps. The government builds a facility well away from any major urban or suburban center. Nice bucolic setting, like a single room high rise, let's say 80, 100 beds, whatever. Adjacent to a treatment and incarceration facility. You're an addict. You are bothering good people. You are thieving. You are robbing. You blame it on your addiction. Fine. Government mandated treatment. You will be sent to this treatment center, which is a secure enclosure, like a jail. You can't walk out. You don't unadmit yourself. You will go through detox. You will go through counseling, mandatory, court mandated. You will not be released until a panel deems you fit, clean, sober, away from drugs, an inbuilt placement center. Before you got hooked on drugs, you were a decent mechanic. We're going to assist you in finding employment before you're released back into society. You never had any job skills? Fine. We're going to enroll you in an apprenticeship program away from your usual haunts. All the money that they're spending in these safe injection sites, none of it, nowhere in their deliberations do they seem to consider impact on a neighborhood, impact on working people, on the people who are basically funding all of this. Once again, something I've harped on before, the disconnect between the theorists, the academicians, and real people, working people. Elitism at its most obvious. My fear is that you're going to start getting, call it a neighborhood protection group. You're going to get people who are fed up. You're going to get people who are angry, and you are going to get hardworking people who have had enough, and they are going to start dispensing street justice. Would I blame them? Not in the least. But what would happen under our current judicial system? You would get hardworking people who were pushed to the limit, and they would wind up in jail, incapable of feeding their families, incapable of earning a living, and getting out with a record. Presupposing they were caught. So you're destroying the lives and the neighborhoods of good, hardworking Canadians, and you're creating a potential scenario where you can actually destroy their lives forever and their livelihoods forever. The government has made it so hard to make a living now that in many cases, even with new Canadian families, both parents work and the child lives in daycare or is watched over by grandma. So there's grandma and a baby sitting at home. Some addict decides to smash a window, do a smash and grab robbery. What's grandma and the baby going to do? First priority, protect the baby. Doesn't find enough. He's got grandma by the throat. Where's the drugs? Where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the money? They have no conscience, no morality. They want to get high. They will do anything to get high. Again, none of these elitists ever confront this reality. I read once, I always loved it, a liberal is just a conservative who's never been mugged. Hard reality, that slap in the face of hard reality is a big wake-up call for somebody when they finally have to cash in a reality check. So that would be my solution. Put the money forward. Increased police presence? Absolutely. Put the money out there. Greater powers, legislative powers, legal powers for the police to remove these criminal elements. That would necessitate politicians with a spine. We're not going to see that unless we see a conservative government come in. This would start to be a solution. I went on once before about vigilantism and vigilantes. Vigilantism itself is a slippery slope. But there's an intelligent vigilante system in place out west. These are local citizens, retired or with extra time on their hands. They have radios in their cars, like handsets, and they are in contact with the police. They patrol their neighborhoods. They're not armed. They are not pepper spray, not batons, not firearms. They patrol the neighborhoods looking for trouble spots, looking at trouble spots, because they know these neighborhoods. They know the alleyways. They know the places where the disenfranchised hang out, and they patrol. And they have constant contact with the police. There's a robbery going on at this location. These people are attempting to break into a house, and they can watch, maybe even videotape them on a GoPro so the police know who they're looking for. And they work hand in glove with the police to protect a neighborhood. That's a damned good idea. That's a damned good idea. Because that doesn't circumvent the law. It removes the fear of vigilantism. I would also like to see something brought up into our judicial system, something like the Jamaican gun court. I saw this years back. There is a jail, well, prison and holding facilities, so jail and prison, attached to the courtroom, just by a barbed wire and guarded corridor. So there's no real transport when it's the criminal's time to be, his case to be heard. He's taken from the cell through the corridor to the court. He's tried, sentenced, convicted, if convicted. He goes right back to where he came from, but now instead of holding, he is incarcerated for whatever period. I'd like to see that as a drug court. I would like to see the same concept brought here for a drug court and a gun court. Strictly dealing with drug crimes, strictly dealing with gun crimes. You're caught with a handgun, bang. You're banged into the cell awaiting sentencing. Now, the other thing about the judges seem to have lost our system of jurisprudence. I'm running over my time here, but bear with me. The system of jurisprudence. Judges seem to have forgotten the purpose of incarceration is not rehabilitation. If you can rehabilitate some of these people, the failure rate is incredible. But if you think you can, sure, give it a shot. Have the mechanisms in place. Counselors, psychiatrists, educational facilities, online educational facilities for these cons in a monitored environment. But the simple fact is, it's protection of society. If you take a murderer and bang him away for 25 years, and that's 25 years, or life, would be life. They would die in prison. It's not rehabilitation. It's not even punishment. It's public safety. You are a murderer. You are a threat to good people. We will remove you from the equation forever. It's protection of the society. Oh, it's an unfair sentence. Again, these idiots, so concerned about the rights of the criminal, totally overlooking the victim. And victims' advocacy groups are gaining more and more ground. They're starting to get traction, starting to get legs, and they're starting to say, what about us? Our lives are shattered, loved ones gone. What about us? So, my fellow Canadians, what can I say? If you wish to see this kind of liberal left stupidity continue, by all means, vote NDP, vote Liberal. You'll see more of this. But if you are an intelligent and reasoned person, it's time to pull your head out of your butt, look at the realities and say, not in my Canada. Not now, not ever. Not in my Canada. Let's clean up this mess. And if harsh measures are needed, institute them. These were the Canadians I grew up with, the ones who would make hard decisions and have the spine to stand by them. And I guarantee you, the most noise would come out of the lib left, but the vast majority of quiet Canadians would sit there going, oh, right, high five. Thank you. Have a good day.